Welcome to Diverse Orange, our conversations about diversity here in Central Florida. My guest today is Priya Persaud. Welcome, Priya. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did, yes. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome. So, Priya, what is your background of your heritage?
So I am Indo-Guyanese, which means that we're Indian Guyanese. On my dad's side, I'm third generation from India, and then on my mom's side, I'm fourth generation. So we're considered Indo-Guyanese. And I was born in Toronto, Canada.
All right. So your ancestors some time back went to Guyana.
Right. They migrated around the 1800s. They went over as indentured servants.
And Guyana brought in a lot of folks from India to work in, like, is it sugarcane fields?
Yeah, sugarcane fields and rice fields. So my family, my dad's side, they worked in the rice fields. I know
Okay.
that my grandfather used to tell us stories, and even my dad has some stories about working the rice fields during the summertime and stuff like that.
But then your dad and your mother hightailed it to some colder land.
Right. So my dad left Guyana in the late 70s, and then my mom left Guyana in the 80s. And they actually met in Canada. They just happened to meet in Canada, got married, and then had me and my sister, and we grew up there.
Okay. So you're a Canadian citizen?
I am a Canadian citizen, and I am an American citizen. I hold dual citizenship.
Well, there you go. So growing up, where in Canada was it, did you say?
Oakville, which is a small town about 20 minutes outside of Toronto.
All right. Well, Toronto's got a lot of diversity. Was Oakville very diverse?
So when we first moved there, not really. However, as I entered high school, I noticed that it started being more diverse. And then now when I go back and visit, it's a lot different than when I left. But even in high school, we had Hindi class that was done through the school board. I did Indian music and dance also, and that was all in Oakville. So it's more diverse than Orlando, I would say, but Orlando's catching up.
Well, then did you stay pretty much in Indian heritage kind of community, or what
No.
was it like?
So where we lived, I was probably in my elementary school, I was the only person of color in the entire school. Everyone else was white. When I got to middle school, I was one of two people of color. And then when I got to high school, that's when there was a small community of Indians. So it was a predominantly white town that I lived in, Caucasian. So in order to go to the classes, it was on the border of Oakville and Mississauga, which is closer to the Toronto area that had much more Indians. But the area that I was living in, I was one of few Indians around that area.
And did you feel accepted, part of the whole, or did you feel like an outsider?
I would say my elementary school years and my middle school years were very tough. I felt like an outsider. And in addition, I don't think that maybe the school system was educated, because even the teachers would ask pretty offensive questions. I remember I was probably 6 years old when someone asked me at school, "Oh, why is your color like that?" I don't know. So I went home and I asked my mom, and my mom said, "Oh, because you're Indian." And then the next day I went back to the little girl and I said, "Oh, I'm this color because I'm Indian." And then the girl asked, "Are you a dot Indian or are you this kind?" I also didn't know what that meant. So I asked my mom, and my mom was super upset. And she went to the school and talked to the teacher and stuff like that. And things like this happened throughout my life in elementary school and middle school. I think it was probably closer to middle school. Someone called me the Nword. And again, I was very sheltered. I didn't know what that was. I told my mom. My mom talked to the school. And at the time, the teacher, this is in the 90s, early 90s, the teacher held like a little meeting in class and had a map out there. And she's like, Priya's family, their ancestors came from India. And then she kind of drew a line to Guyana, South America, and then she drew a line to Canada. And she's like, so she's not the N-word. And then she said, but the N-word people come from Africa, which, thinking back at the time, again, I did not know. And my mom didn't know. And all I thought, okay, I'm not the N-word. And I did not know that that was still offensive. So I would say that growing up, anybody who was different probably had the same experience I had in the town I was in, because it's super offensive thinking back on how the teacher decided to explain that to the class on where I'm from and where other people are from. So, yeah.
And was she saying N-word, or was she saying the word?
No, she was saying the word. She said the word.
Right.
And I never told my mom, because to me, I didn't know any different. I did not even know that was bad. The girl had said that to me. I told my mom, like, someone called me the N-word. Like, what does that mean? And my mom was very upset. I explained that not till much later when I learned what it was.
All right. But in high school, you started learning some more things about your culture.
Correct.
Your heritage.
Throughout my childhood, also, my parents put me in classes, but those classes were always outside of the school area. None of my school friends. So when I got to high school, there was Multicultural Day, and my parents encouraged me to sign up. And as I signed up, I realized, oh, there's a whole group of, like, not just Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese. There are people from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Arab countries. And that's where I got, like, finally I felt like I fit in. Not just with an Indian group, with kids of all different, like, cultures. I started having friends that were from Iran, they were Persian and Lebanon and Chinese and Korean. That's where I really learned about different cultures. It was not till high school, and my high school at that time did a great job making sure we all learned about different cultures. Chinese New Year would come around, the students of Chinese heritage would actually bring in snacks, and they would do a little presentation based on what they do in their household. Same thing during Ramadan. The kids of Islamic faith would do the same.
What brought you to Central Florida, and what was your experience like coming here?
My parents, they decided to move, get away from the cold. They were tired of the cold. Florida is probably the closest tropical weather to where they're from, Guyana, South America. And at the time, I was 16, so I was 2 years into high school over there. It was a rough transition because I felt like I finally found my group of friends in Toronto in Canada, and I had to leave them and start fresh. However, I went to University High School on the east side, and they already had a developed multicultural group, multicultural organization. And I would say, like, the students that I ended up becoming friends with, they're still my friends to today. Those students came out and they reached out to me, and they're like, hey, where are you from? Are you Guyanese? Are you Indian? You know, and I built friendships that way. And then a lot of those kids, we ended up being friends, and they invited me to, like, the mandir, which is a Hindu temple. And I became very involved in the Hindu temples in the Central Florida area. And I started doing dance for, like, different Diwali programs, Pagwa programs, or Holi. And I guess it just kind of grew. At first, it was, of course, upsetting, I think, to any 16-year-old. However, Central Florida is, like, now my home, and all these little things that I used to perform at way back in the day when I first moved here are the areas where my students are now performing, like Lake Eola, Diwali shows, the Mandir programs, and now I think there's more diversity. So I didn't get the opportunity to perform at like Fusion Fest, or Crane's Roost has, like, a World Food Festival. But now my students are getting the opportunity to perform at other multicultural events, which is nice.
And do you find that still that basically all your friends are immigrants, recent immigrant families?
Majority. There are some, actually, yeah, I would say most are immigrant families, either they're first generation, second generation, whether they're Hispanic, Jamaican, West Indian, East Indian, Arab, they seem to be all some sort of, like, immigrant in here. Yeah. I had one or two friends that were, like, American born and generations of Americans. Like my brother-in-law, my sister married someone who is few generation American, which is different. than what I grew up with. But you know,
And
it's
you were okay to accept him into your family circle?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We get to learn about his culture, which is like pure American culture, and he learns about ours, and it is really nice. Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Well, we're glad that you're finding a place here and that you are involved in helping us learn about your cultural heritage. So thank you for joining me for this brief conversation today.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you all for listening to Diverse Orange. Each Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we go live with a conversation with someone. So thanks, everyone.